different crew on those same streets. Through the 1970s, McKay moved as a BGD, a supreme gangster. He operated in the Homan and Walnut area, the same blocks that would later become the nucleus of everything. He wasn't Black Souls yet, but the streets were already shaping him into what he was about to become. East Garfield Park in the 70s wasn't for the faint-hearted. Between the VICELORDS, the supreme gangsters, and the Souls all competing for the same concrete, you had to be serious just to survive. And Sam McKay was serious. 1980, a man named Wayne Edwards, known on every block from Homan to California as Jack Bobo, makes a decision that changes the West Side forever. Jack Bobo had been a supreme gangster. He ran with Larry Hoover, the Larry Hoover, before Hoover went to prison in 1973. That personal bond opened every door Bobo needed, and even after Hoover went behind bars, the organization he helped build kept running. In 1976, Bobo set up formal business with the Supreme Gangsters, tapping into the West Side heroin trade through that Hoover network. They built, and I want you to hear this clearly, one of the most complex drug distribution networks the city had ever seen. Then, in 1980, Bobo flipped. He became a Black Soul. Now think about this for a second. Why would a man with that kind of reach, that kind of setup, that kind of money, walk away from the BGDs and link up with the Souls? Simple. Business. He saw a play, a way to connect two worlds, BGD muscle on one side, Black Soul territory on the other, and turn that whole field park into a straight money machine. When Bobo arrived at Walnut and Homan, Sam McKay was already there, and something clicked. McKay and Bobo together founded the Gangster Black Souls. McKay was the leader, the true architect of the faction. Bobo brought the gangster concepts and the connect. McKay built the structure around it. The BGDs were still operating just a block or two away, and instead of warring, they were doing business. Heroin money was flowing through those streets like water through a broken pipe. Now let me paint the picture for you real quick. Walnut and Homan at its peak, because if you weren't there, it's hard to even imagine what that looked like. Jack Bobo's operation was reportedly pulling in $50,000 a day, and this wasn't powder cocaine or backroom deals. This was organized, systematic. Bobo ran 2-for-1 sales on heroin bags on Sundays, actual promotions. On the block, people talk about drug dealers like they're disorganized criminals. Jack Bobo was running a retail operation with marketing strategy. Locals say people dependent on heroin would line up at Walnut and Homan and by the park at Carroll and St. Louis every Sunday, a steady, predictable flow of human suffering that Bobo had turned into a revenue stream. And the supply chain behind all of it, that's where this story goes global. Bobo's Connect ran all the way to Southeast Asia. Nigerian suppliers moving Thai heroin through O'Hare straight onto West Side streets, and Channel 5 News caught wind of it. Journalist Carol Marin produced a special investigation. She called it Chasing the Dragon. In it, she reported specifically on Wayne Edwards, Jack Bobo, bringing Thailand heroin into Chicago. The cameras were now watching, which meant the law wasn't far behind. What do you do when you've already built the most sophisticated drug operation on the West Side? You protect it, you expand it, you build alliances. 1987, Monroe Banks, known on the West Side as Money, walks out of prison after 10 years and moves to take command of his corner of the Four Corner Hustler operations. He had a vision, corner the West Side crack cocaine market while keeping the heroin money flowing, and he needed allies. He sat down with Jack Bobo and Sam McKay. What came out of that meeting became legend on the West Side. The three men forged a peace agreement, and with it created a symbol, the Black Diamond, 4 points, each one standing for something: love, hate, kill, take. Out of that same meeting came the concepts of solid and 440. Exactly what it said. Think about that. Here you have the leader of the Black Souls, the leader of the Four Corner Hustlers, and a man who had personal ties to Larry Hoover's organization, all sitting in a room, drawing up an alliance, and understand what that actually meant on the streets. By 1987, Chicago's gang world was split down the middle. Folk Nation on one side, People Nation on the other. The gangster Black Souls ran folk aligned. The Four Corner Hustlers ran under the People banner. These two sides weren't supposed to be doing business. They were supposed to be at war. McKay and Bobo didn't care. On the west side, the color of money overrode the colors of the nations. Always. But make no mistake about what Sam McKay was willing to do to protect that empire. November 13th, 1987, the same year as the Black Diamond Pact, two men, Brian Fowler and DeJuan Buck, are selling drugs near the intersection of Fulton and Kedzie, right on top of the Soul's major drug house at 3233 West Fulton. According to court documents in People v. Murray, 1993, McKay ordered their deaths. He pulled together Kevin Murray, a man known as Jet, a man known as Paris, and Tyrone Washington. Jet arrived with a gym bag. Inside that bag, two fully automatic weapons. Murray drove, Jet and Washington rode. They found Fowler and Buck. Both men were killed in a back alley near 3300 West Fulton, then got back in the car and Murray drove away. Murray and Washington were convicted of murder, life in prison. Sam McKay, the man who, according to court documents, said the two must die, was never charged. That right there tells you everything about how McKay moved. He stayed insulated, he stayed careful, and he was dangerous. 3 years later, August 4th, 1990, the intersection of Adams and Francisco, a crack house jointly operated by Black Souls and Gangster Disciples members, a full smokehouse operation on the second floor of a two-story apartment building. Someone decided the operation needed to end. A Black Soul named Jeffrey Todd Wilson and a Gangster Disciple member doused the building in gasoline and set it alight. Two explosions followed. Two men, Floyd Spencer and Lee Burnett, died in the fire. Wilson was convicted of murder, sentenced to life in prison. You want to know what Wilson and his partner were paid for burning that building down with people inside it? $200. $200. That was the price placed on two human lives. 1992, the walls close in on Sam McKay. He's arrested, charged with murder and kidnapping, and just like that, the architect of the gangster Black Souls is taken off the board. His incarceration hit the organization like a bullet, but the network kept running. In January 1994, the hammer dropped on what remained of the operation. 45 members connected to those same Nigerian suppliers were indicted. Law enforcement seized $118,000 in cash, 10 vehicles, and over 1 2/3 pounds of white heroin with a street value of over $192,000, all from one apartment building on the 4300 block of West Hirsch Street. 45 people, one building. McKay was already locked up, but his fingerprints were all over it. The gangster Black Souls had been built around two men, McKay's structure and Bobo's connect. With McKay gone, the foundation cracked. And then in 1998, Jack Bobo went down too, convicted, sentenced to 30 years in prison. With both men gone, it was over. By the early 2000s, the gangster Black Souls were defunct. Sam McKay eventually got out, and the streets, the same streets he had controlled, the same corners he had bled for, took him out. He was killed in 1993 and January 1994. The hammer dropped on what remained of the operation. 45 members connected to those same Nigerian suppliers were indicted. Law enforcement seized $118,000 in cash, 10 vehicles, and over 1 2/3 pounds of white heroin with a street value of over $192,000, all from one apartment building on the 4300 block of West Hirsch Street. 45 people, one building. McKay was already locked up, but his fingerprints were all over it. The gangster Black Souls had been built around two men, McKay's structure and Bobo's connect. With McKay gone, the foundation cracked. And then in 1998, Jack Bobo went down too, convicted, sentenced to 30 years in prison. With both men gone, it was over. By the early 2000s, the gangster Black Souls were defunct. Sam McKay eventually got out, and the streets, the same streets he had controlled, the same corners he had bled for, took him out. He was killed after his release,